The alarm went off. Number 5:30 a.m. Already. I peeled myself out of bed, the usual stiff ache in my knees kicking in. Another day, another 5-mile run before the rush hour hit. I padded over to the window, pulled back the thin curtain. That's when I saw it. The sun wasn't its usual blinding yellow. It was red. Not sunset orange, not cloudy red, a deep blood red, like someone had poured a jug of cheap wine across the sky. It was pretty, in a way, really striking. I grabbed my phone, snapped a quick photo. "Holy hell, look at that," I muttered to myself. "Looks like some Instagram filter gone wild." I sent the picture to David, my buddy from college. "Crazy, huh? Probably just pollution or something. Sunset in the morning, right?" I gave a weak chuckle, shaking my head. Yeah, pollution. That had to be it. It was Denver, after all. I laced up my running shoes, stepped outside. The air felt different, thicker, maybe. And the light. Everything was steeped in that red glow. The houses across the street, usually a mix of beige and gray, now looked like they were bleeding. As I started my jog down the street, my usual route around the block, I felt it. The trees seemed a little taller, reaching for that unnervingly vibrant sky. The houses, those same houses I'd passed every morning for 3 years, they looked off. Somehow stretched, maybe. Like a bad photo edit. I dismissed it. Must be the weird light playing tricks. My eyes adjusting. Just a trick of the light. Then, at the corner, I saw it. A quick flash of a deeper, searing red, like a blood-red spark, just at the edge of my vision. It was gone before I could focus. Blinked. Nothing. Just the everyday street. "Damn it, Alex," I breathed, picking up my pace. "You're tired. Need more sleep. That's all this is." After the run, I got home, made coffee, the strong stuff, sat down on the couch, pulled out my phone, tried to find news about the sun. Nothing. Just the usual political garbage and some celebrity gossip. I scrolled again. No mention of a crimson sun. That was odd, very odd. Usually something like this, it would be all over the local channels, screaming headlines. But no, nothing. Maybe I was just looking in the wrong place. I got in my car, headed for work. Usual commute. Traffic was a bit lighter today, I thought. The red light from the sun filtered through the tinted windshield, making everything seem a little like a dream. Or a nightmare. I turned on the radio, hoping for some news, some explanation. Static. Then a song. I didn't recognize it. It was tinny, off-key. And the lyrics, they weren't English. Not exactly, but they weren't any language I knew either. Just a string of syllables that sounded like gibberish, yet held some kind of strange rhythm. And the words, or the sounds that were supposed to be words, they twisted into my ears, wrapping themselves around my thoughts. Things like fading and oblivion and gone seemed to echo, even though I knew those weren't the actual words they were singing. "Damn it," I muttered, shaking my head. "Since when does this damn radio just change channels on its own?" I twisted the knob, tried a different station. More static. Then another song. Same weird, almost language. No, this was wrong. I tried a few more presets. Just buzzing or fragments of conversations that made no sense. Did I hit something? Maybe I bumped it. I didn't remember bumping anything. I tried to focus on the road. This was new. I mean, my car was old, but the radio usually worked. I turned it off. The silence was almost worse. Because the tune, that unsettling melody, it just kept looping inside my head. Those strange, almost words echoing on repeat. "Damn it," I muttered, shaking my head. "Since when does this damn radio just change channels on its own?" I twisted the knob, tried a different station. More static. Then another song. Same weird, almost language. No. This was wrong. I tried a few more presets. Just buzzing or fragments of conversations that made no sense. Did I hit something? Maybe I bumped it. I didn't remember bumping anything. I tried to focus on the road. This was new. I mean, my car was old, but the radio usually worked. I turned it off. The silence was almost worse, because the tune, that unsettling melody, it just kept looping inside my head. Those strange, almost words echoing on repeat. "Damn it," I muttered, shaking my head. "Since when does this damn radio just change channels on its own?" I turned it off, tried a different station. More static. Then another song. Same weird, almost language. No, this was wrong. I tried a few more presets. Just buzzing or fragments of conversations that made no sense. Did I hit something? Maybe I bumped it. I didn't remember bumping anything. I tried to focus on the road. This was new. I mean, my car was old, but the radio usually worked. I turned it off. The silence was almost worse, because the tune, that unsettling melody, it just kept looping inside my head. Those strange, almost words, echoing on repeat. Work was a blur. I kept catching myself staring out the window at the red sun. My colleagues didn't seem to notice, or if they did, they didn't comment. A few were grumbling about bad headaches or saying they felt a little off. Mrs. Henderson from accounting mentioned her cat had been acting strange all morning. That was it. No one said anything about the sun. I mean, how could they not? It was right there, blazing red. It was freaking me out. I kept my mouth shut, didn't want to sound like a lunatic. Maybe it was just me. Maybe I was overtired. Later that evening, after getting back home, I felt this strange gnawing hunger. I opened the fridge, reached for my usual, a big bottle of orange juice, my favorite brand. But when I pulled it out, it wasn't orange.
Not even close. It was gray, sludgy, opaque, like some kind of alien mucus. Not the vibrant, pulpy orange I loved. "What the hell?" I whispered. "I bought orange juice, not this." I gave the bottle a tentative shake. The liquid inside didn't slosh. It moved like thick, congealed fat, solidifying. It looked disgusting. Must be expired, I reasoned, pulling the bottle closer. But the label, it was new, fresh, not a hint of wear or a faded date. I drank this last night. It was normal, perfectly normal. I recoiled, slammed the fridge door shut. My heart was pounding. This wasn't right. I felt a cold dread start to coil in my stomach. First the sun, then the radio, now this. I walked into my home office, trying to shake it off. I needed a distraction. I usually just messed around on my computer, but the thought of looking at another screen made my eyes ache. I glanced at my desk. There was a framed photo of David and me, taken during our last hiking trip. I picked it up. His face, it was blurry, not like bad camera work, more like someone had gently run a thumb over his eyes, his nose, blurring the edges of his features. Not a lot, just enough to be unsettling. David, I spoke his name aloud. It felt strange on my tongue. Why is this blurry? I rubbed my finger over the photo, but the image stayed the same. It wasn't the picture. It was him, or my memory of him. A shiver, colder than anything I'd felt all day, snaked down my spine. Am I starting to forget him?
The thought sparked a panic deep in my gut. I had to call him immediately. My phone was still in my hand from earlier. I fumbled through the contacts, searching for his name. I typed David. The screen showed garbled alphanumeric characters, a string of nonsense. Not David, not D-A-V-I-D, just a jumble of letters and numbers that made no sense. It was as if someone had scrambled the data, overwritten it with pure static. "What the hell is this?" I hissed, my voice barely a whisper. I tried to call the corrupted entry. It rang. Just rang. No answer. No way. I just texted him this morning. I know I did. A cold, thin thread seemed to pull through the folds of my brain, tugging at something deep inside. It was trying to unravel something familiar. The name, his name. I stared at the phone, then back at the photo. David's face in the picture seemed to be dissolving, as if a thin, reddish haze was rising from the print, slowly consuming his features. Not a lot, just enough to be unsettling. David, I spoke his name aloud. It felt strange on my tongue. Why is this blurry? I rubbed my finger over the photo, but the image stayed the same. It wasn't the picture. It was him, or my memory of him. A shiver, colder than anything I'd felt all day, snaked down my spine. Am I starting to forget him? The thought sparked a panic deep in my gut. I had to call him immediately. My phone was still in my hand from earlier. I fumbled through the contacts, searching for his name. I typed David. The screen showed garbled alphanumeric characters, a string of nonsense. Not David, not D-A-V-I-D, just a jumble of letters and numbers that made no sense. It was as if someone had scrambled the data, overwritten it with pure static. "What the hell is this?" I hissed, my voice barely a whisper. I tried to call the corrupted entry. It rang. Just rang. No answer. No way. I just texted him this morning. I know I did. A cold, thin thread seemed to pull through the folds of my brain, tugging at something deep inside. It was trying to unravel something familiar. The name. His name. I stared at the phone, then back at the photo. David's face in the picture seemed to be dissolving, as if a thin, reddish haze was rising from the print, slowly consuming his features. I dropped the phone on the desk. It clattered loudly. My breath felt shallow, catching in my throat. This wasn't lack of sleep. This wasn't pollution. This wasn't indigestion. This was happening. To me, to David, to the world. My hands were shaking. I needed to do something, anything. I frantically pulled open a drawer. My old notebook, a pen. I had to write it down. Everything. My name, my address, David's name, even if I couldn't see it on the phone anymore. My family, my memories, everything. I scribbled my name, Alex Miller, my address, the date. The words felt weak, fragile, as if they could crumble at any moment. I wrote faster, a desperate scrawl. But the letters on the page began to shift, to swim. The A in Alex morphed, stretched into a squiggly line. The X became a knot. The words themselves, the very ones leaving my pen, blurred, became nonsensical symbols, like a child's clumsy attempt at writing, or a language I had never known. They were just losing meaning. I squeezed my eyes shut. I opened them, looked up. The mirror on the opposite wall reflected back something twisted. It was my outline, my general shape, but my face, my eyes, normally a dull blue, were burning, glowing red, like embers in a dying fire. My features, the lines of my jaw, the bridge of my nose, they seemed to melt, to run like hot wax, distorting into a grotesque caricature. My reflection in the mirror,
It wasn't quite in sync with me. My lips, a split second later than mine, slowly stretched into a wide, impossibly wide grin. It went ear to ear. It wasn't my smile. It was a gash, a gruesome cut on a face that was still vaguely mine, but not. It was wrong. So wrong. My arms, my legs, they started to tingle, to go numb. A strange, heavy sensation, as if an invisible weight was pressing down on me, trying to tug, to pull me out of my own skin, my own body. I felt a silent scream tear through my throat. No sound escaped. I staggered back, stumbled.
My head slammed against the wall behind me, a dull thud. I whimpered, my eyes fixed on the mirror. A long, jagged crack had appeared, running from the top right corner straight down, like a lightning bolt. And that crack, it pulsed. A soft, reddish light flickered from within it, like a heartbeat. In the very center of the glowing fissure, I saw it. A tiny, red, incandescent object, gleaming for a split second, then vanishing, as if a spark from inside the wall itself was reflecting my terror-filled eyes. I pushed myself away from the wall, backing away from the fractured mirror, my entire body trembling. My breath hitched. I looked down at my hands, my palms. They felt warm, much too warm. A strange, insistent itch began to spread across the skin. And then, for a brief, horrifying moment, I saw it. My left palm, just for an instant, pulsed. A faint, reddish glow emanated from it, like a small internal switch had been flipped, then just as quickly faded. It was barely there, almost imperceptible. A trick of the light, I told myself. A trick. But the itch remained. The warmth, too. A quiet, burning reminder. It wasn't just out there, in the sun. It wasn't just the orange juice, or David's face, or the words I was trying desperately to cling to. It was in me, inside me. And I suddenly didn't know how much longer I could trust what I saw, what I felt, what I remembered, or if there would be anything left to remember at all. The air outside was thick, silent, too silent. After the mirror, after the feel of whatever was growing inside my hand, I just needed to move, needed to find someone, anyone. I didn't know who or where, just away from that room, that reflection, that thing on my hand. My legs felt heavy, each step a struggle against an invisible current. The street was deserted. No cars, no people. Just the houses, still steeped in that bloody red light, looking like they were melting into themselves. I clutched my old notebook, the one from my office, its pages still filled with the nonsensical scribbles from my failed attempt to write things down. A desperate, useless talisman. I walked for what felt like hours, turning corner after corner. The red sun a constant, oppressive presence overhead. My head ached, a deep, pulsating throb. I passed the usual spots, the park where I used to run, the coffee shop. They were all still there, physically, but they weren't the same. Everything was off, twisted, like a bad photograph, warped and stretched. Then I saw it. The corner store, the one I always stopped at for a cold drink after my runs. The big plastic sign above it usually glowed with cheerful white letters, open. But now, under the strange red light, the letters were reversed. Anapo. Just like that, backward. Not just mirrored, but genuinely spelled out. And as I stared, the individual letters didn't just stand still. They shimmered. They writhed. Like worms made of light,
shifting, stretching, into shapes I couldn't quite make out, then snapping back to their reversed spelling. A quick flash of something else, a symbol I'd never seen, utterly alien, flared between the letters before it was gone. "What the hell?" I muttered, the words feeling dry in my throat. I blinked, rubbed my eyes hard, almost bruising them. I don't remember it being like that. My voice sounded small, lost in the vast quiet. "It's just the light. It has to be. Playing tricks." I tried to believe it, tried to find a thread of sense to hold on to. But the feeling of something loosening, something coming undone in the very fabric of everything, was getting stronger. It was like watching a perfectly woven quilt slowly unravel, thread by thread, until it was just a pile of meaningless strings. A few blocks further, I saw them, other people, not many, maybe 2 or 3, shuffling along, their movements slow and deliberate, like sleepwalkers. A middle-aged man in a worn jacket, a woman pushing an empty stroller. They looked normal, like they were just out for a strange day. But as I watched the man, he turned his head, seemingly to call out to the woman. His lips moved, but no sound came out. No, that wasn't right. The sound did come. A faint, distant murmur, but it was delayed. His mouth had shaped the words, then, a full second later, the sound drifted to me, like a poorly dubbed movie. I shook my head, my guts twisting. This wasn't real. This was a nightmare. Then he smiled, a slow, vacant spread of his lips.
It stretched, wider, too wide. From ear to ear, a gaping, horrifying slit, a dark, bottomless chasm in his face where a normal smile should have been. His eyes, though, they didn't follow the smile. They remained fixed, staring straight ahead, empty, utterly, terribly empty, like 2 glass marbles staring into nothing. "No, no way!" I breathed, backing away slowly, my heart slamming against my ribs. "I'm just imagining it. I have to be." I tried to turn my head, tried to look at anything else, but the sight was branded into my mind. The horror clung to me, a cold film on my skin. They're not people anymore, are they? The thought came unbidden. Or maybe they never were, not since the first red light hit. A new, insidious idea started to take root in my head. Maybe this had always been there, just hidden by the old, yellow sun. I had to find David, my buddy, the photo, the blurry, distorted photo. I had to know. I found myself walking faster, then breaking into a jog, my legs burning with unspent adrenaline. His apartment building was still standing, miraculously, in the haze of red. It seemed to have weathered whatever was happening. The entrance was quiet, too quiet. My apartment had been like that, my office too. The silence was becoming a constant companion, heavier than any noise. His door was ajar, a thin crack of darkness welcoming me in. I pushed it gently, the old wood groaning softly, a sound that felt entirely too human in this dead building. "David?" My voice was just a whisper. The apartment smelled dusty, sweet, metallic, and dusty. A fine layer of red dust coated everything, like dried blood smeared across all familiar surfaces. The living room was empty, but something was wrong, so deeply, fundamentally wrong. His armchair, the big, comfy recliner where he always watched football, was hanging from the ceiling by some invisible force, upside down. The lamp in the corner stood on its head, its bulb flickering, a sickly yellow light in the pervasive red.
Books were stacked in precarious towers, balancing on nothing. It was like gravity had gotten bored and decided to take a vacation. Or someone had come in and rearranged the entire apartment as a cruel joke. From the bedroom, a sound, a low, drawn-out moan, like wind sighing through a narrow crack in a window. It wasn't human, but it wasn't inhuman either. It was something. My legs felt numb, but I forced myself forward, one foot in front of the other. The hallway seemed longer than before. Each step was a battle against the dread pooling in my gut. I pushed open the bedroom door. David was there, on the bed. He wasn't really David, not anymore. His body lay there, a formless mass of organic matter, glowing a dull, pulsing red. It still tried to hold the vague shape of a man, the basic outline, but his skin had melted, become a viscous, shining fluid, sagging and flowing into unnatural folds. His hands were fused to his arms, thickened, deformed, and his eyes, two burning red orbs, sunk deep into the shapeless mass that was once his face. They stared, not at me, just stared, into the middle distance, utterly vacant. No light of recognition, no flicker of David, just the sun, reflected in his raw, incandescent gaze. David! The name tore from my throat, raw and choked, but it was barely a whisper. I stumbled back, hit the doorframe, the wood digging into my shoulder. No, no, it can't be you! A wave of cold, sharp air hit me. Not cold like winter, cold like something immense and dead. A chill emanating from that thing on the bed. What happened to you? The moan came again, so faint, a whimper from something that had once been a friend, now just a vessel filled with this. I felt hot tears streaming down my face, but the feeling was distant. A physical reaction, but the emotion, the deep, aching sorrow, it was gone. I couldn't feel it. It was like someone had taken a sponge to my brain and wiped away the very concept of grief. I knew David was gone. This thing, this glowing red, horrifying thing, was all that was left. A living, breathing, if you could call it that, monument to oblivion. I turned and ran, out of the bedroom, out of the apartment. Down the stairs, my feet pounding, desperately trying to outrun the image burned into my mind. David, the red mass, the vacant eyes. I ran until my lungs burned.
I tried to grab hold of David's face in my mind. The old David, his smile, the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed. But it felt like someone had snatched the memory from my grasp. It blurred, shimmered, like smoke vanishing in the wind. The harder I tried to remember, the faster it slipped away, leaving only a dark, gaping hole. Only the image of that thing on the bed, staring with the dead eyes of the red sun, remained. His smile, his voice, they were gone. I slumped against the cold, damp wall in the hallway, gasping for breath. My vision swam. My phone was still in my hand. Automatically, I pulled up my photos, the one I'd tried to save earlier, the one of David and me on that hiking trip. I stared at it. The blurring from before was gone. Instead, David's face in the picture was completely, perfectly replaced. It wasn't a blur. It was the face of one of those glowing red entities, a smooth, featureless surface, with two burning red orbs where his eyes should be, and a wide, vacant grin carved into its surface.
It was smiling at me, from the photo, a hollow, soulless smile. My phone vibrated, a short, sharp burst in my hand, a message from a number I didn't recognize. I stared at the screen. Nepo? Just those 4 letters. My blood ran cold. The word from the store sign, the reversed open sign. It knew. It knew. No, it can't be. My voice was a choked croak. I looked around the empty, silent hallway. The chill was back, creeping up my spine. Not the cold of fear, but a deeper, more unsettling cold. The cold of being watched, of being known. It knows where I am. It's playing with me. After that, I knew there was no point sticking around. Society was gone. People were just gone, or changed. I started moving, constantly, just putting one foot in front of the other. I looked for abandoned places, old houses, stores, anything with a roof. I tried to make a space for myself, a safe place, just for a night or 2. I scavenged food and water, usually from deserted grocery stores, the shelves still full of half-eaten cans or packages. The silence in those stores was heavy. They used to be so loud. I still had my notebook, the one filled with my scrambled name. Every morning, when I pulled it out of my backpack, tucked deep inside for safety, I'd find it, a small, blood-red mark, like a tiny, ancient symbol. Not an ink stain, not a smudge, but a deliberate stroke. It was always there, a new one, each day. Silent, persistent. Not on the pages I'd tried to write on, but on a fresh one, a new mark, another sign. I knew I couldn't hold on to everything, all the names, all the faces. David had shown me that. So I started being selective. My name, Alex Miller. The date, what I thought was happening, the red sun, the things it did, the memories it took, the people it changed, and a message, a desperate, foolish message, hoping someone, somewhere, would find it. Find me, find some truth. I wasn't alone, not entirely. I found a small group, 3 others. A frantic woman named Sarah who clutched a photo album. A quiet old man, Mr. Davies, who just wrote lists of common nouns. And a young guy, Mark, who muttered about numbers. We huddled in an old library, trying to make our own collection of words and images. Our fragile attempt at defiance. We wrote everything down, anything we could remember. We called it our memory archive. One evening, I was telling Sarah about my sister, my little sister, how she used to laugh, how she died. Pneumonia. She was so small, so tiny. It was a memory I hadn't thought about in years, buried under the everyday. But now, with everything else crumbling, it felt important to pull it out, to make it real, to prove I once had it. Sarah was listening, nodding. Her eyes were wide, focused. And then, mid-sentence, she stopped. Her gaze didn't meet mine anymore. It fixed on something beyond me, in the dark, dusty shelves of the library. Her face went slack. Her mouth opened a fraction. Then, she started coughing. Sarah mumbled, her voice flat. Not her voice. It was something else. Thicker, older. Her breath, it rattled, like dry leaves. I froze. She was describing it. My sister. My memory. Word for horrifying word. The things I'd never told anyone. Her skin turned blue. Tiny, tiny fingers, cold when I held them. Her voice was gaining volume now, a guttural,
pained sound, not Sarah's, but something rasping, something ancient.
It was filled with such raw, primal grief, such an intimate, agonizing detail that it twisted my stomach. It was my grief, my memory, but it was coming from her, flowing through her, like she was a conduit for something that had reached deep inside me and pulled out my most private, most painful wound. And now it was using it against me. A shriek tore through the air, but it wasn't Sarah. It was the sound of a small, frail child struggling, choking on air, coming from Sarah's mouth. I backed away, hands up. This wasn't a memory library. This was a trap, a mockery. It wasn't finding my memories, it was stealing them. Or worse, weaponizing them, making them real. And it meant there was no safe place. Not even in the company of the last few sane people. Not even in my own mind. Everything was being turned against me. I left the group that night, without a word. They were just meat puppets, or maybe soon to be. I needed to be alone. I needed to find a place where I could stand for one last second against the tide. A fortress, not of walls, but of defiance. A final act. I walked for days, avoiding others, always under the red, red sun. My body ached. My mind felt stretched, thin, so thin. My left palm pulsed with a constant, low, red light now, an insistent throb. And the itch, it spread up my arm, across my chest, like invisible insects crawling under my skin, rearranging something. I found it in what used to be a city park, now just rubble and warped trees, their branches clawing at the crimson sky. A huge slab of granite. It had been part of a monument. Something about war. I didn't remember the details. Didn't care. It was hard. Indestructible. Maybe. The red light from the sun beat down on me, washing over the stone, making it glow with an internal fire. My hands trembled as I pulled out a jagged piece of rebar, something sharp enough. This was it, the last thing. I bent over the stone. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the metal. I pressed the tip into the granite, hard. The sound was a grating scrape, loud in the unbearable quiet of the park. My name is Alex Miller. Each letter was a struggle. My arm felt heavy, leaden. I etched it out, slow, painful. I once remembered. As the tip of the rebar carved the word remembered into the stone, a searing pain tore through my head. Not a headache. It was like 1,000 hot needles plunging into my brain, twisting, ripping. My vision white flashed. And then, images, fragments, my mother's face, David before, my old house. They didn't just fade, they pulled, like someone was yanking them out by the roots, violently, completely. They unraveled, disintegrated into nothingness, like sand caught in a windstorm. Gone, utterly gone. I felt my body grow heavy. So heavy. My legs buckled. Red light pulsed from under my skin, not just my palm, but my entire arm, my chest. I could feel my flesh, inside, heating up, glowing, melting. My fingers, the ones still clutching the rebar, felt stiff. They curled, slowly, painfully, turning hard, like stone. They weren't obeying me anymore. I dropped the rebar. It clattered against the stone. My breath hitched, a thin rasp in my chest. I looked down at the granite slab. at the words I had just carved. I once remembered. But the word remembered, it was gone, or not gone, but changed, distorted, a jumble of warped, meaningless squiggles, just like my name on the notebook, just like the Nepo sign. It couldn't be read, it couldn't be held. I collapsed, not with a cry, not with a whimper, just slumped, my body swaying, on the verge of falling over. Everything was gone. My mother, David, my home, my very sense of what it meant to remember. It was all gone. But there was no pain, no fear, nothing, just a void, a strange, almost quiet acceptance, a deep, bone-deep nothingness. I lifted my hand. It was glowing brightly now, a painful, throbbing red. And on the back of my hand, where the skin should have been, a red, organic mass had protruded. It slowly, deliberately opened. A tiny, pupilless red eye. Just a glowing orb of light. It looked at me. No, it looked into me. Like it was reading the very last page of a book I no longer remembered I had. It stood up, slowly, cumbersome. My body, or what was left of it. I didn't feel cold anymore, didn't feel fear.
The red light from inside me was intense now, outlining my limbs as they started to twist and contort into shapes that simply didn't belong. But I didn't see it, or care. I reached out a hand, still glowing, towards the granite slab. The illegible squiggles where remembered had been. They pulsed red. Then they melted. Liquid light dissolving into the stone, leaving the surface smooth, as if nothing had ever been carved there. I turned away from the stone, towards the horizon, towards the deep, blood-red sun. I walked. My legs, my body, it moved slowly, drawn, like an insect. I didn't remember who I was, didn't remember where I was going, didn't remember anything about the color blue, or the feel of winter's cold. All of it gone. There was just a gaping nothingness. Then there, a feeling, not a memory, something else. A part of my consciousness, or what little was left, that knew. It knew that someone else was waking up, inside this body, my body, a new life, stirring, and I was just the shell, just the old skin. There was no way out of this, not for me, not for anyone.